Hi, this is Amy at North 40 Outfitters, and today we're going to talk about season extending techniques and ways to protect your garden early in the season as well as in the fall. So whether you planted a little early or you planted at the proper time, Mother Nature doesn't pay attention to when that last frost date is supposed to be, so sometimes a wild card can be thrown at you. Thankfully, there are ways to protect your plants, such as this great wire alley that helps hold up this floating row cover. This is just one example of a floating row cover. It's very light, it allows light through, it allows some water to some extent through, and it also is an excellent frost protection. A heavyweight blanket like this will give you a solid 4 degrees of frost protection. So if it's looking at 32 degrees, you're going to be just fine. Even 30 degrees, you're still going to weather that just without a problem. Now there are lighter weight fabrics, and if you're using those for frost protection, you might want to double them up depending on what that temperature is going to be. But the wonderful thing about using the floating row covers is you don't have to worry about them the next morning. How many times have many of us gone out and put plastic over our tomatoes or other vegetables in the springtime and then forget about it in the morning, and when that sun comes up they get fried? Or a lot of times with plastic, if it touches the plant even during a frost event, then it gets burned and gets ruined too. So you don't want to use plastic because of that, and also because of in the morning when when the sun comes out it burns it. With floating row covers, it won't. So with a floating row cover, you can leave it on all night, the next day, especially if the next day is cold, but even if the next day is going to be gorgeous and lovely, it's not going to overheat your plants. Another benefit throughout the summer of using floating row covers is it helps with keeping pest pressure down. There's a lot of plants, such as these cabbage plants, that would probably do just fine with a cold night, but the cabbage moths are out. And when you start seeing the cabbage moths out, a great way to keep them off your plants is to cover them completely. So floating row covers are a great first line of defense in the spring, and once again they're also fantastic in the fall, because when that frost threat is coming and you have tons of green tomatoes and you don't want to lose them, it's awesome to bring out these comfy, cozy blankets, put them around your tomato plants or anything else you want to save. Clothespins are a great way to connect them, and be sure to have rocks, because if these aren't weighted down, a little bit of a breeze, they're going to end up in the neighbor's yard. So another option, if you need to protect your plants early in the spring or even later in the season, especially if you just need to protect individual plants, is using a nice little paper-based or floating row fabric-based garden cap. These are absolutely excellent and easy to use. All you have to do is place it over your plant and then be sure to weight it down sometime. Sometimes you can find pins that you could stick into the ground, but you can always go old school and just use a rock and keep it in place. Now this is going to be great to keep it through the night. Now, unless you poke a hole in the top to allow air to escape, because in the next morning these really will get warm once that sun comes out, you'll want to take it off the next day. My all-time favorite for season extending tools are the water teepees. The original brand was Walla Water, which was developed in Kalispell, Montana, and is now out of Dillon. But these are just a phenomenal concept, and I've used them for well over 30 years and have never lost a plant in them, even when they've been buried in snow. Now the great thing about these water teepees is you can plant your plants early. A lot of times if we're having a decent spring, I'll have my tomatoes out by the end of April, first part of May, which is weeks ahead of when you can usually safely put them in. Today we're going to plant the watermelon using this water teepee because it's a little early, the nights are still a little bit cool, we might have some frost coming up, but I want this to be safe and sound, but on its way to grow us some great summer trees. Now the way that you use these is you just take your plant and dig your hole just like normal. Now the one thing, if you are planting early in the spring, you'll want to spread some black plastic or something over the area where you're going to plant first for 4, 5, 6 days in order to warm it up a little bit. You don't want to shock their roots if you're planting too early in the season. But since we're close to when we should be safe, the soil temperature is nice, so I'm just going to plant it like I normally will. Right in there. And then, in order to put our water teepee around it, you have to use some fancy tools, like a bucket. 5-gallon bucket this size is just fine. So you're going to put that over your plant, and then you're going to put your water teepee over that. Now, filling up the water teepee is the fun part. You just take your hose, kink it. I know it's not good to kink your hose, but it'll be fine for this. And just fill each of these cylinders. Whoops. Fill it 3/4 to all the way. And you can go every other one. Sometimes that helps stabilize it and make it easier to control. So then the concept is that during the day the water will warm, and then during the night that heat is released and keeps the plant warm. Let's see, put that there. And then the magic happens. So once you get everything situated, you want to make sure that it's kind of even on the base. Whoops. Can get a little messy. Add a little bit more. And then you just pull it off. There you go. And right now, the watermelon is down underneath. It's happy, it's protected. This is going to get nice and warm, and then it's going to keep it toasty at night, even if the temperatures are dropping well into the 30s. So now the water teepees will last for many, many seasons. Once the plants are grown tall enough that they no longer need this protection, and they're really, you don't want to take them off when they're too overgrown, because then it could harm the plant. But when you take them off, just rinse them out, empty them out, rinse them out. Sometimes if there's kind of the algae growing in, you can take a brush and clean it a little bit, but usually if you dry it well, it's going to last you many, many seasons. Now with tomatoes, a lot of times I'll just leave the wall of waters on the tomatoes all year long because it offers protection, particularly because we have wind all year long. So what I'll do is I'll just squeeze the water out of them and open it up with my tomato cage, and it just stays on. And a lot of times I get my tomatoes that ripen first are underneath in that protection of the water teepee. If you want to learn more about garden season extending techniques, be sure to stop by our North 40 Outfitters stores or see us at north40.com. If you have any questions, please comment below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button to see more videos.